tickets are on sale, and they're apparently some of these prices are well north of $1,000. This comes to us from the Rep. The subhead here: want to see John Cena's last WrestleMania match? It will cost you well north of $1,000 for a single nosebleed ticket. This article is talking about how prices had been like around maybe a couple of $100 for tickets even a couple of years ago. Now it's up over $1,000. Top end seats, $15,000 before fees. One company's offering an over $10,000 package that includes suite seats and some meet and greets as well. Just incredible. 2 years ago in LA, out in Inglewood, 2 upper deck seats, $250 after fees. It's more than 4 times that now. This is a hot ticket. They are making tons of money. Maybe it will be like they did up here in the teaser promo. It'll be The Rock and Cody Rhodes and maybe Roman Reigns thrown in there as well. You could see him behind here in the background there waiting for a tag. Maybe this is what's in store for WrestleMania 41, but crazy the ticket price. You've been to live events. You went to this past year's night 1 in Philadelphia. This is a huge jump even from what you paid to go to Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, Philly was $380, which was a lot, obviously, for one night. But to see him over $1,000 for the nosebleeds, nosebleeds were like roughly $250 after taxes and surcharges, but which is a lot. But I mean, $1,000, that's crazy. Maybe it's because of the location, because you're going to have more people that would want to go to Vegas for whatever reason.
Maybe
because it's got the other stuff there. So maybe if you want to go with a group of people, I kind of like wrestling, I'll go to WrestleMania. But $1,000 is crazy, to be honest with you.
That is a pricey ticket. This is getting into Taylor Swift range, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, you're looking at Taylor Swift prices, and if you've ever been, and just having gone to WrestleMania, it's really big stadium, and it's tough to see anything. So like, not trying to bury the WWE product too much, but for $1,000, it's not worth it. It's like straight up.
Well, we'll see if enough people disagree to fill, what is it, Reliant Stadium out there where the Las Vegas Raiders play.
Yeah.
And other things happen.
I mean, it could shift down if they're having trouble selling the tickets, which is always typically the problem, is they have trouble selling out the building when they're that big. But it seems like the demand is just through the roof if it's at $1,000.
Well, they're starting early enough that people can save up for a good 6 months and get there.
Mm-hmm.
Business is good for the WWE. So good, in fact, that why don't we just have more lawsuits? Vince and Linda McMahon, this comes to us from Rolling Stone. Vince and Linda McMahon named a new Ring Boy sex abuse lawsuit against the WWE. This is resuscitating some charges from incidents that happened in the 1980s. I don't know what to make of any of this because it is so old, and apparently there were some settlements involved. One thing that I did not like about this, and let's see if my screen catches up to me sharing here, is the current lawsuit against McMahon. They got comments from Janelle Grant's attorneys. And that seems unsavory to me. Like the idea that because I'm suing them and you're suing them, that we have to just talk about each other's cases. If I'm Janelle Grant's attorney, I don't know that I'm saying anything about this lawsuit. Because what if it turns out that this lawsuit has very little merit?
Yeah.
Now I've tied myself to it. Like I don't need to play the enemy if my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Like, if your case is strong, stick to your case. You don't need even more media attention.
That's a great point if you think about it, because it seems like she's got a very strong case. I mean, the text messages is kind of like a smoking gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that McMahon was told to leave the company was like, yeah, they know, you know, like uh, TKO knows that we got to get rid of this guy because this is actually happening. Uh, Whereas I'm not trying to downplay if this is real or not. You have to kind of investigate and figure it out. But to your point, this could really hurt her case if this is complete garbage. So
Now, in
excellent.
attorney speak, she did pretty well here. Grant's attorney, Ann Callis. I'm assuming no relation to Don Callis. The
Yeah.
allegations in the Ring Boys lawsuit against WWE are deeply troubling. Vince McMahon made sexual abuse and human trafficking a hallmark of WWE's culture for decades. That one might be a little strong.
Mhm.
That one may be a little sensational out there. Survivors like Janelle Grant and other former WWE employees deserve their day in court. Okay, that they reined it back in there. All former WWE employees who experience sexual abuse and harassment should be allowed to tell the truth by having their non-disclosure agreements waived. There you go. Bring it back to your case. Miss Grant stands by all WWE survivors, and she believes that Mr. McMahon, WWE, and all involved parties must be held accountable. So, pretty good legalese, lawyer speak there. But, this is not a risk-free proposition of just making yourself a pile-on party in someone else's lawsuit. Like, you got your own thing to worry about.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's pretty crazy that this lawsuit is even existing. But I remember the Donahue show, which is a very, very weird YouTube artifact. If you wanted to look into that, Donahue had an episode with Vince McMahon, and it's got Bob Orton on it. It's got a couple other people I forget. Dave Meltzer's on it. Very young Dave Meltzer.
Wow.
Full mullet. And he's on it. And I remember Dave Meltzer talking about it. It's the first time on TV ever. So he was like, whoa, this is crazy. But all these guys had done TV. Vince had done TV so much that they were like, whatever, we'll go on and argue about this. Like, Vince like loves this stuff. So he was like all about arguing about it. And so there's all these accusations years ago, but they like settled them all or they got figured out. So the Rainboy thing was a prevalent thing on that Donahue show, but you never really heard about it again. But now it's kind of getting dug up again.
Apparently, it's 5 new John Does are speaking out here, so maybe they don't have anything to do with non-disclosure agreements. So go to Rolling Stone if you want more of the details on that report. It's big business. It's rather cheap in the cheap heat sense, but it's not cheap as far as the dollar amounts that are going around.
Yeah, and to the fixer, to your point, this show Donahue was kind of like Jerry Springer, basically.
It was okay. I'll show that I know what this was. There was a time when Donahue's show was syndicated and it would air at the same time as Oprah Winfrey's show, and so the argument above Housewives was: do you watch Phil and tape Oprah, or do you watch Oprah and tape Phil?
Yeah, because Oprah used to be a bit of a freak show when she first came out, but then she like tempered it down.
Yes,
and became like a respected figure at one point.
Yes, as they let people like Jerry Springer have that end of the spectrum.
Right.
They got to contrast themselves. Hey, speaking of controversy, Natalia Neidhart reveals the person who helped Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart reconcile. This comes from the takedown on Sports Illustrated. Apparently, it was Tyson Kidd who helped heal the rift between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. They go through this. It was, let's see, T.J. Wilson, which is her real life husband, that he apparently helped her family reconcile with Shawn Michaels, not so much with Vince, but like the wrestlers who were involved. Shawn being like, "Hey, man, I was doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is what we do. We're carnies. It's carnival stuff.
Yeah.
Like he told me to do it. It's no worse than any other finish we've ever done. Sorry that he didn't confide in you as much." But apparently, TJ something to Brett like, I had a really great talk with Shawn, and he was awesome. He was so nice to me. He was so nice to Natty. He was such a cool guy. He was giving me advice and being really helpful. This is when Tyson Kidd was, I believe, maybe getting some advice early in his career, and Shawn was on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn had said that he felt so bad about everything that happened with you guys in the past. And eventually, it was TJ was the one that opened up the conversation between Brett and Shawn. That's great to see. Natalia, great family. We talk about great wrestling families. Is it the Anoa'i Maivia family? Is it the Rhodes dynasty? But I mean, how about the Hearts?
The Hearts, for sure, are up there.
The Hearts are
gotta
pro
be top
wrestling
3,
royalty, right?
Yeah, for sure, top 3, and especially in the '90s, they ruled. And Natty is one of our favorites. Come on, she's a don't bury the lead favorite.
Yep, she can wrestle. She helps other talent. She not only trains them outside of the ring, but she's the one they can send into the ring with them who will be safe,
Mm-hmm.
who can work with people who are just getting their feet wet on the main roster. She can do it all. That's
Yep.
why she holds the Guinness World Record for WWE, not only women's matches wrestled, but also women's matches lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because she's the one
wrestled
that
so
they send
many.
out here to make sure that everybody else has a good showing.
She was a champ at one point too.
She's held the belts, but her real value to the company is that she's incredibly dependable and can make other people better.
Yeah, and that's more valuable than a star. I feel like sometimes just like someone that can steady the ship.
Yep, she's had a long career and she deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was great to read. Something good-hearted and uplifting.
Yeah, it's cool because I think specifically with Bret Hart, he has such disdain sometimes for certain. Like if you look up some of his shoot interviews, he has such disdain for everything that from pro wrestling in general, and it's just like, man, like you got the opportunity to be at such a high level, and he's just so bitter about everything. So
He's got a lot of resentment.
It's good to see him maybe dial it back a little bit. Talk to Shawn Michaels. Hey, it's a performance, right? And he was just doing what he had to do, and it's like, it's all work, right? So
there's a lot of Bonsall Street Bomber and Bret Hart.
Right.
Just the resentfulness.
The untethered hate is ridiculous.
Just resenting the people around him for whatever reason. It's there.
Yes. The character I played that was completely unreasonable is the person that Bret Hart kind of is as his shoot real life character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your work is his shoot, unfortunately.
Right.
Speaking of some awesome Canadians, Scott D'Amore, he most recently late of Impact Wrestling TNA, he is reviving Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He was on Fightful Select's show here, Fightful Wrestling with Sean Ross Sapp, talking about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's rebirth. Maple Leaf Wrestling was an old Ontario, Canada promotion or Canadian promotion. Scott D'Amore, Canadian, wants to revive it, one of the great indies in North America. But they can't use Maple Leaf Wrestling anymore because the initials are MLW. There's already a Major League Wrestling. So they added pro. It is MLPW, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Scott D'Amore got to talk about all sorts of things with Fightful Select ahead of their great card that happened just 1 week ago. It was a 2-day premium live event, pay-per-view for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. One of the great things he said was about letting wrestlers who go to other promotions, either as one-offs or as just leaving and going there, letting them take their wrestling names and gimmicks with them, not trying to fight them on it the way WWF and WWE did for decades. They wanted to own everybody's name. Scott D'Amore made the great point about not just their theme songs and their wrestler themes, talking about Jeff Jarrett and Christian Cage, for example, that it can only be better for some of the second tier promotions, because if he goes out with his name from TNA Impact and he's wrestling somewhere else, now Scott D'Amore points out this is the social media age. People who like that guy are now going to go looking for him online. And if he's using the same name he did in prior promotions, all that archival footage starts getting watched again. This could generate interest in those other promotions. So Scott D'Amore's got a good business head for the social media age. We know he's got a good mind for wrestling. This was a fascinating interview. It lasts barely more than half an hour. I encourage anybody who wants to hear more about Scott D'Amore, especially if you were into some of the second-tier indies or second-tier major promotions like TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor, things like that. Go for it. It's Fightful Wrestling with Sean Ross Sapp on YouTube. This was from October 18th, so slightly more than 1 week away from tonight. Great card there for Maple Leaf Wrestling. How many of these people do you recognize, John? I recognize Raj Desi, the former Jinder Mahal.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize Konosuke Takeshita from AEW, who's one of their title holders. Takeshita, right? I don't really recognize much else, but that doesn't mean that they are not big players somewhere.
Is that Jordan Grace from Royal Rumble at the bottom, or is that somebody?
No, that's another wrestler with a title belt. I think it's the Ring of Honor women's title holder.
Oh, you know what? I recognize her from NXT and WWE. I forget her name, but she's the Ring of Honor.
The Ring of Honor champ. So there's a few big names here and other people who are well known on the indie scene. Their card was for night one, Takeshita versus Mike Bailey. Let's see here. Raj Desi was here in a tables match against Bully Ray.
Oh, Bully Ray's a big one
there. Right. QT Marshall I've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Taylor Rising I've heard of. Josh Alexander, I want to say I've heard of him from TNA. Let's see here. IWGP had their tag championships defended on Major League Pro Wrestling here. Night 2, the AEW International Championship was defended. Josh Alexander versus Takeshita. The Ring of Honor Women's World Championship, Athena had the champion against Giselle Shaw. Trevor Lee, whom I've heard of from AEW, he was there. I've heard of Jake Something from NWA. Bully Ray wrestled again in a tag match, as did Raj Desi, the former Jinder Mahal. Lots of pretty big names on this card. What say you about Scott D'Amore getting yet another chance here and going back to his roots in Canada and being able to put together what looks like a fantastic indie wrestling card for Major League Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling?
Yeah, it's great. You want to see other companies succeed, right? As a result of the fact that the more there's companies that are thriving or doing well, you're going to get better wrestlers, more exposed to different environments, to different opportunities for you to watch. You could watch an indie show. You don't have to shell out $1,000 for WrestleMania. You could probably go to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling for pretty cheap. So I wanted to take a step back.
Sure.
Sorry. I got a good comment from the Fixer, and I did not get it out there in time. This is about Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Shawn being a born-again Christian and getting clean of his addiction. I can see that where, sometimes the friction between your coworkers is you just class switch them as people, as personalities. So Shawn may be taking care of his health.
Shawn I mean, like, even just from the stories you hear, Shawn was a wreck. He
Yeah.
wasn't just a little bit like, oh, he drinks a little bit too much. It was like, no, he was very pilled up all the time and stuff like that. So he was a real
Yeah. So
mess.
makes it easier to deal with somebody who has their life back together. So
Hmm.
yes, a good call bringing in some of the more out of the ring stuff there. Very good. Thank you, the fixer. Uh, and another thing to anybody watching either the archive or in the live stream with us, tell us in the chat, tell us in the comments anything you think about any of the stories we're covering here. If you agree with our takes, if you disagree with them, and when we get to the end of Cheap Heat, of course, tell us if there's anything we missed that you wanted us to cover from the world of pro wrestling, from WWE, AEW, and beyond for this week. We are of course open to feedback.
Hmm.
Let's jump here. More indies. Within a week, I find out who the Costco guys are, and I find out that they had something to do with wrestling. And sometimes I question whether we live in the best timeline.
Oh, you told me you're like, oh, you sent me this article. I'm like, who the hell are the Costco guys? And you're like, I had to watch some of this. And then I pulled up TikTok, and boy, oh boy, it is not good. I cannot believe they're in a position they're in. And to be honest with you, I'll put it like this, Dom. Sometimes when we're making content, I think, we're not doing so good, or this video didn't do so well, and maybe we're not doing the right thing. We don't know what we're doing. Then somebody like the Costco guys or whatever come along, and I'm like, wow, this is horrible. We're doing way better than this. So if you ever want to have your self-esteem boosted, just watch TikTok for a little bit and just see what people are doing on that app. I cannot believe they are in the position that they're in, but I have noticed this thing about viral, because you really got me thinking about this. I've noticed now when people go viral, it's like they try their best, like they have companies in their ears that pick them up and gobble them up and try to get them doing as much as possible. Like, no, you have like a 3-month window to try to get your dumb video that went viral. That's the dumbest thing on the planet, to like get you to get paid otherwise, and I can help you do that. And whoever is their agent, we're here. We could probably make better content than the Costco guys. Please.
Absolutely. We have not reviewed bulk size junk food from Costco or anywhere else that apparently these guys do. They give product reviews of things they find in Costco.
And they're recycled jokes. It's like, I'm a Costco guy, I do this. I'm a Costco guy, I do that. That's like a recycled joke from a very other bad jokes that they have on TikTok that they're doing. So they're doing like a TikTok style joke for Costco. It's just,
It is apparently working because Big Justice, which is what this large child is referred to as, he's at a Coastal Championship Wrestling event and gets to spear one of the wrestlers. John, if we go viral, will you spear someone from an indie promotion?
I would gladly do that, and I think they would have a lot more respect me doing it than one of the Costco guys. If I was wrestling today and I had to be the guy that took the spear, I would quit. I'd say, you know what? No, I'm not doing it. I quit.
This is the most watched clip that some of these guys may ever be in. It's with the Costco guys.
Yeah, you're the guy that got speared by the Costco guy. You're done. Your career's over.
And since we can't get enough of it, this is just another angle. Apparently, Big Justice, which is what the 12-year-old boy is called, was with some of these wrestlers, and yeah, that's the opposite angle. The camera is shaking because it's just so electric in there. I don't get it. Apparently, there's the Costco guys. It's AJ who, according to this report from WrestleZone, the dad has signed a one-match deal with AEW, has challenged QT Marshall to face him on the AEW Full Gear pre-show. Johnny, you're getting full gear and watching the pre-show. I am now.
They would pay to see me spear someone. Thank you, Fixer. I would gladly take your money and spear someone. I was an indie pro wrestler. I never did the spear, but I think I could figure it out as it's a very easy move. But
that's the move to the person who doesn't know what they're doing. You could tell them, look, just like run into the guy like with your shoulder a little, like lean over a little bit, hit the shoulder. He will do all the work. Just hit him with your shoulder and fall down with him.
Yeah. I can't believe that. Is QT Marshall still in AEW?
If he's not, he may be coming back to job to a Costco guy.
Oh, yeah. He said he's leaving, or he's announced that he was leaving in 2023, unless he's. Oh, he's signed to All Elite Wrestling, where he serves as the vice president of show and creative coordination. Oh, okay. So he got a promotion by coming back.
He's coming out of his in-ring retirement to have a match with a guy who shoves chocolate chunk cookies down his throat to taste test them and rate them and make sure that his son and nephew get in on the action there, because kids are cute. And who doesn't like watching chubby children review junk food?
True.
Me, that's who. I'm really not interested. But hey, there was a wrestling angle to it, so it's cheap. It's heat. Someone who's not cheap or cheap heat. Samantha Irvin, former WWE ring announcer, maybe one of the best they've ever had, maybe the best they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you letter to the WWE Universe posted on her X account, Samantha the Bomb, about leaving WWE. Rumor is she is not going to AEW, so says Ricochet. Ricochet, her husband, is there in AEW, so she is just moving away from wrestling. She was supposedly trying to get a singing contract. She has an excellent voice, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe she is continuing in that vein, trying to become a full-time singer performer in that regard. WWE, of course, brought back Lillian Garcia, a much beloved ring announcer from the past. She came back to take Samantha Irvin's place on Raw. So the ring announcers are over in the WWE. Like the crowds like them. They do good work.
Yeah, Samantha Irvin, if she's not going to, I thought she was going to AEW for more money or something like that. But it sounds like she might be just, it's time for her to move on.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how well she was doing there and how much she was making, and was just like, I got my money. I can just, I can move on and maybe do something I want to do. And maybe it's a lot for all that travel, because I know she has a kid.
Mm-hmm. It could get tough. Maybe Ricochet is swerving everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all can rest easy. Who knows? I mean, in 6 months, who knows? Maybe she winds up in AEW. Who knows? But much beloved by WWE Universe and well deserved it. Well, she did her job very well and brought a lot to the table. Speaking of people who are signing with AEW, Sting. This comes to us from WrestleZone also. Sting says he has signed a multi-year deal with AEW. Says it's like a licensing deal, almost like a Legends deal. Sting gave a little interview here with Wrestle Purists, in which he talked about this, what he's been doing since his wrestling in-ring career came to an end. He has signed a multi-year deal with AEW. So AEW video games, AEW toys, posters, whatever, memorabilia. Sting has a multi-year licensing deal with them so they can use Sting on their products. And he even used the term Legends deal in this very short interview clip here. So WWE, not the only ones who see some value in some of the older stars that still have a lot of appeal. What say you? Good move for AEW? lukewarm on it. What say you, John? You watch AEW more than I do.
Yeah, great move and appropriate move because WWE didn't give him a time of day when he was there. They really jobbed him out to Triple H. Like, ugh. Then he lost to Seth Rollins, who injured him, and he was like, I'm done here. So he moved on. He moved away, and he signed on with AEW, and he had good matches for being a very old man and putting him in the right position. And even that last match that he had, he was doing moves. He's doing his moves of doom. He wasn't taking he did take crazy bumps. It was just take crazy bumps.
The hip toss into the pane of glass was something.
Yeah. And he did all he could. He was wildly over. The crowd loved him. He never lost. He retired. He got Darby Allin over as well. You couldn't ask more for his career and a way for it to end. So he should sign a Legends contract with them because, I mean, honestly, he probably owes it to them, right? Nobody ever made Sting the guy that doesn't lose, right? They never made him the guy in any company.
Yeah, he was at the top, near the top of cards for a long time, won a lot of belts, always a fan favorite, and especially in his prime, a really good worker.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys who if you saw him wrestle today with that style, you'd be like, oh, he has the power game. He has some of the high flying game. He can use the ropes, use the turnbuckles. Tremendous athlete, can wrestle defensively if he has to. So yeah, he was always a guy who was over with the crowd. And so, I mean, a Legends deal, that's what the Legends deal is made for. Guys who are over with the crowds. They don't have to wrestle anymore. You send them out to pre-shows, to fan meet and greets, to do promotional work, to do press conferences, to do wrestle cons, wrestle conventions. You find them out to do little 60-second interviews like this with wrestling journalists. This is what it's for. This is what it's for. So if you like it, then I like it as well. Very good stuff. Let's talk Daniel Garcia. This comes to us from Uprocks. Daniel Garcia of AEW recently re-signed to AEW, and he wants to make a good go of it there, as anybody should early in their career. Got some ambition. Good for him. He also had some things to say about the internet wrestling community, the famed or infamous IWC. We're in a day where most former pro wrestlers have a platform, whether it's a podcast, a media network, or simply using their social presence to cause a stir. Garcia says he doesn't want to name names specifically, but hopes one day to be creatively fulfilled and successful enough to not feel the need to go on a podcast every weekend and bad talk people who are trying to take the business further. I do think that there is a lot of positive influences in the wrestling world when it comes to wrestling media. I think Busted Open is a net positive for wrestling, Garcia says. But then there's other podcasts with people who are clearly just looking for clicks. Hating on AEW is a very popular thing, and it gets people a lot of attention. And I feel like a lot of these things come from people who retired their jerseys. We never hung it in the rafters, and we don't even remember what their number was on their jerseys. A lot of those people are trying to get a new career off hating on AEW and hating on people who are trying to be successful. And it's sad to see. I hope I never have to go through that when I'm older. John, you sent this to me and said this was the best article on Daniel Garcia you saw, not because it covered his re-signing with AEW so much as it covered this little rant of his.
Yes.
So since this stuck out to you right away, what do you make of these comments? And did I highlight the correct ones?
No, this is the one. Really interesting to go after what you would call the old man podcasts, old wrestlers that make the podcast. This is probably not limited to Kevin Nash, who trashes AEW. Conan and Disco Inferno trash AEW like crazy. You've got Stevie Richards, kind of he gets his nose in there and says bad stuff about AEW. Although Stevie Richards is is my favorite pro wrestling podcast. He's fantastic.
Okay, very good.
Jim Cornette, obviously, just his whole gimmick is why AEW is bad. He'll talk about a WWE show and then he'll just start talking about AEW and why it's bad. Like he's so his whole shtick now is that, and it's always it's got to be a tough thing for them to sit back and hear when you're a pro wrestler, and it's like they log into YouTube and they look up their name and it's just all these like, is AEW dying stuff, or it'll be dead tomorrow and stuff like that, and all these opinions from these guys. So I want to give them credit for clapping back a little bit here and saying, hey, you're retired, but they didn't hang the rafters in your jersey in the rafter, and we don't even know what number you were. Like you didn't do much, and I do want to give him credit for that. But I also would be terrified to go after Cornette. Absolutely terrified. I just wouldn't want to. That would be the one guy. Maybe that's why I said I don't want to name names. That'd be the one guy who I would want to avoid. I would say all those guys except for Cornette. I'm so scared of the vitriol that you would have toward me if I say anything bad about you.
Okay, is that because the Cornette fan base is so large and tends to be rabid?
Yeah, the Cornette fan base is really the cult of Cornette. They've got some real weirdos out there, and then in addition to that, Cornette is so funny. So when he starts to rip you, it's just like, man, it would be like Bill Burr getting a hold of you, or something like that. I'm trying to think of an old comedian.
You almost enjoy the roast.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Don Rickles. It's like Don Rickles getting a hold of you, and it's like, oh man, he's burying them. So, yeah. So from my perspective, I just wanted to point this out because I want to make a video that says Daniel Garcia shoots on Jim Cornette, Conan, blah 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 blah, and then have the thumbnail, and then we'll talk about it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So what did you think about this? Him saying this about to the older podcasters.
He's not talking about us, is he?
Well, here's the thing. We typically keep it pretty positive. So hopefully
we're
like
objective, and we appreciate that. I mean, if you're commenting on the major pro wrestling promotions, you're commenting on people who are at least pretty good at their jobs.
Yeah.
You've got to go into it hating on it to find stuff to be negative about as the rule rather than the exception.
Yeah. No, it's certainly. It's not like they're like, oh, the show was good except for this. Like, hey, listen, tonight, hey, the show was, sometimes I'll say, hey, the show was good except for Jade. And it's like one thing, like, yeah, maybe I'll throw some shade at Jade, but I said everything else is good. Mm-hmm. But and maybe that's a little bit more what there was another podcast they mentioned. Busted Open.
Busted Open, yes.
Yeah. So people seem to like Busted Open too. So
Busted Open, is that
Bully Ray's?
I was just gonna say, is that Bully Ray's? Okay. Mm-hmm. He seems to be a guy with a good mind for the wrestling business, and he seems to be a fair analyst now that he's hung up. Well, I shouldn't say hung up the boots because he was just on Maple Leaf Pro wrestling twice in 2 nights.
Mm-hmm.
But his in-ring day is as a full-time wrestler is behind him. He seems to be a fair commentator and analyst about it.
Yeah, and I just saw this comment from the Fixer. He said the indie wrestling scene is good for talent and for wrestlers getting noticed. And then he said,
especially nowadays with the social media, because you're getting on screens. You're not just getting in the dirt sheets and being read. You can get on screen. Pro wrestling is a visual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to get on a screen is so important, and that's available to people nowadays.
Yeah. So he corrected one of the words here. I think it was Crowd 2022-23 when WWE were doing a UK Castle pay-per-view, and Triple H made an appearance at a local indie wrestling company and gave a speech, got the crowd on their feet.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so and he's a guy who's wrestled and would probably know to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're at an indie show and Triple H comes in and fires the crowd up, that's got to be crazy.
Right. Yes. Like that time when you and I were just mosey on down and doing our podcast, and the man with 3 H's showed up in the chat to
The,
pep talk us.
the man with 3 H's, and we can ask him directly what was going on. That was amazing.
Yes. One more for Cheap Heat. Swerve Strickland. This comes to us transcribed from WrestleZone. Swerve Strickland was on the No Contest Wrestling podcast and gave his team of 4 wrestlers to join him in a bar fight. This seems to be the new trend.
Yeah, this is.
We did CM Punk's last time. Here's Swerve Strickland's 4. He chose Eddie Kingston and Samoa Joe, then said Darby Allin, and then rounded it out with Jake Hager, the former Jack Swagger from WWE, WWF days. Jake Hager. What do you think of these 4?
Well, Jake Hager's the best one, obviously.
Okay.
Jake Hager fought in Bellator and MMA.
Mhm.
He wrestled in college at Oklahoma, so a big school,
Mhm.
D1
All-American.
school, where he wrestled. So he's legit. Eddie Kingston and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, for sure. I think he could go in a bar. Eddie Kingston, maybe the character Eddie Kingston. I don't know about the man if we're talking shoot fighting. But
The man Eddie Kingston, I have some insider knowledge, was a bouncer
oh, that's right. You do
in
have
New
the
York
insider,
City.
You do have the insider knowledge. Tell that story.
A friend of mine from high school, we reconnected over on the Mighty Book of Facebook
Mhm.
years ago, and he posted an Eddie Kingston clip from Billy Corgan's NWA days, when Eddie Kingston was pretty big there, and I obviously saw it and commented on it because I was watching NWA back then, and I was like, "Yeah, Eddie Kingston, quite a character." And so he tells me, not far off from what he's like in real life. He bounced for me at one of my places of business here.
Wow.
So Eddie Kingston, New York City bouncer.
Okay, so I take it back. If he was a bouncer, I'll give him a check, because if he wasn't like that in real life, then he'd be a bad bouncer. So if he was a good bouncer, it means he can go.
It means he also knows his way around a bar.
He knows how to bar fight.
He knows how to do risk assessment
Yeah.
in a bar. He knows where the trouble might come from.
Mhm.
He knows those things. So Samoa Joe's been mentioned twice, CM Punk and Swerve Strickland. Samoa Joe seems to be maybe one of those legit tough guys in the back.
Samoa Joe has probably been in a bar fight, and it's before cell phones or something, or the cell phones just never caught it, and that's why the people are saying it. Because there's no other reason I can really think of where they're like, Joe can go. Like, he must have been in real fights.
CM Punk hinted that, there may have been a time 20 years ago when someone who looked like him and someone who looked like Samoa Joe may have been in this exact scenario.
I could see that.
Between
Between alcohol, and I know CM Punk doesn't drink, but he's got a mouth on him.
yes.
And I know that Samoa Joe probably is throwing him back, and maybe he just got a little into it with someone. Who knows?
Imagine the only sober guy in the bar being someone as obnoxious as CM Punk.
Right? They're like, "Sir, you're flagged." He's like, "I'm not even drinking."
It's like, that makes it even worse.
Right.
And then Darby Allin, because it's a bar fight, you got to have someone who would jump off the bar.
Yeah, I like that as a gimmick. You need someone that will jump around.
Swerve Strickland, you like what you've seen from him on AEW. This seems to be a good 4. Fun little gimmick here. The 4 guys you'd want in a bar fight.
No, this is a good 4, and I like it a lot. And it might be a short video depending on how the original video did. If the original video did well, then I'm probably gonna take this. But interesting. I love Swerve Strickland. I think he really delivered as the champ. He dropped the belt. He came back. The crowd's chanting for him. He doesn't necessarily need a belt. He has really good rivalries, and it looks like he's down.
That's good. That's a big step up for a guy, right?
Exactly. They don't need to have the belt, and I think that going down the road here, it looks like he will be feuding with Shelton Benjamin, who has won back-to-back matches in AEW's debut. And
Oh,
I'm like, hell yeah. And Shelton Benjamin looks excellent at 49 years old. Really
all
good.
right. Good for him.
And he's working heel, so he's just wrestling. So he's not doing a lot of the high flying stuff. He's just wrestling out there, you know?
Which he can do, amateur background.
He's taking people down and doing headlocks. I'm like, yeah, this is what the heel's supposed to do. Come on, the heels don't have to be doing flips. They're doing headlocks.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So Swerve is doing well in his babyface role. The crowd's behind him. He puts out good work.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I like it. John, that's all I got. It's unseasonably warm. It is unfathomably inexpensive. What is it, John?
It's cheap. Heat. Woo! I had a ghost sound in because it's Halloween.